My name is Vaqar Ahmed. For the past 16 years, I have been a practitioner of macroeconomics in Pakistan. And as Dr. Afshan just said, I represent an institute, Sustainable Development Policy Institute, which was recently ranked in the top 60 list of global think tanks, and which is a big honor for Pakistan. And this ranking was done by University of Pennsylvania. I have an interest in economy, as the name implies, and I have an interest in making this economy work. And this is what I've been working on. Today, I just want to talk about three very specific things. First is, how do we make economics part of Pakistan's living room talk? How do we make sure that this economy around us, which affects all of us, we do talk as a corridor talk, we do have some discussion on it, but it's really not from the very heart of or the core of our hearts as it should be. For example, how would the currency devaluation, the recent currency devaluation, impact your savings? How does the return of load shedding impact my productivity, your work, for example? How does the upcoming inflation in the economy affect you, your salary? We don't usually have structured talks around these subjects as much as we should do. People find economics as a discipline. People tell me that it's a very boring subject, which is what I get to hear quite often. And this is probably the subject, and I want to make a case over here, this is probably the subject which is the closest to your lives, your personal lives, which many of us do find extremely boring. As I say, the economy never changes unless you make it a personal agenda, and your own economics doesn't change if you make it until unless you make it personal. I talk to a lot of television stations, asking them to give time to Pakistan economy or the issues surrounding Pakistan economy. They don't find it interesting. They believe that their TRP ratings go down when they discuss economy on their television. I asked the print media to give more time to the op-eds, to views and opinions around economy, and the print media actually refers me to the different doors which majority of Pakistan doesn't read. Over 90% of Pakistan's population reads the Urdu print, basically. Unfortunately, Urdu media or Urdu print media is not willing to give that much space to economy. They would usually refer you to the English dailies, which would be only read by less than 5% of the population. So, as I just said, the agenda around economy isn't personal as yet. So why should we as Pakistanis care about it? Why is it that when you talk or when you sit in your living room with your kids, the talk about Star Trek and Tom and Jerry would be far more interesting than talking about your kid? Why hasn't he or she got more play areas or grounds around them? Even talking about why is internet gaming becoming more expensive in Pakistan, for example? These wouldn't be the subjects that actually come up, And why should we all about, or why should we start taking more interest in this? This brings me to my second point, which is actually the theme of this conference. A peaceful tomorrow is contingent upon economy and jobs. Yes, there would be many other subjects that, of course, are that make determinants of a peaceful tomorrow, but unless you have jobs running in this country, job creation, institutionalized job creation as a process taking place in this country, somehow or the other, the dream of a peaceful future remains distant. Let me also add over here that the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor has provided a new narrative for Pakistan economy. You now have additional capacities being created in agriculture, manufacturing, services industries. But besides this, there are also fears around sustainability of this growth. What do you do beyond CPEC going forward, you know? Would you be able to sustain this newfound economic growth in the country? And that economic sustainability, or the questions around economic sustainability, are fairly well grounded in the recent fears of rising imports and rising private consumption, which we cannot afford. Recently, our budget just gave a liberal policy for importing classic and vintage cars in this country. So somebody must be having a hobby of collecting cars, but that doesn't add to the economic sustainability going forward. And this is perhaps the most relevant issue when it comes to youth engagement in this country. When I was, of course, graduating from the university almost 17 years back, you know, you had three main patterns. You could see youth leaving the country. You could see youth applying for jobs which are not relevant to their qualification. And you could see youth resorting to social evils and crime. We can only reverse this pattern if you have economic sustainability as part of your overall economic agenda going forward. And I would like to submit over here that there are three main pressing reforms. Again, unless we as citizens make those reforms our own agenda, those reforms wouldn't come about. They just can't remain government reforms. They have to be your and my reforms. The first one is that how can Pakistani enterprises achieve a higher level of competitiveness? This is probably the first and most important thing to discuss. This year, Pakistan, of course, declined in the cost of doing business ranking. Last year, we had in fact improved. So this stop-go cycle has to finish. We need to make sustained progress for our small and medium enterprises. The large businesses, as I said, are thriving on the back of China-Pakistan economic corridor, but it's not working yet for the small businesses. 97% of Pakistani businesses are SMEs. They need to grow, they need to graduate, and they have to become exporting entities. That's reform agenda number one. Second, how can Pakistan's undocumented economy become the lever of growth? This money is not lying in Panama. This money is not lying in Switzerland. This is the money lying inside Pakistan. This is stored in your real estate because people don't have other avenues of saving. This is stored in your 5 million local currency bank accounts, undeclared bank accounts in Pakistan. This is stored in foreign currency bank accounts inside Pakistan. This is stored in bearer certificates, securities, and prize bonds in Pakistan. You have to unleash this wealth. It is still inside the country. It hasn't gone out. Let's make undocumented economy a lever of growth. The third idea that I want to put in front of you is how do we remove weaknesses in public spending on human resource development. Every 100 rupees that we spend out of government money on public welfare, 38 rupees get leaked out. They don't reach the beneficiary, almost 40%, you know. How do we prevent that leakage, that wastage of resources, so that money actually reaches to the beneficiary? And this is related to the related reform, which is the civil service reform in this country. Civil service will continue to remain the most important instrument for development implementation in the country. Unless we all cheer for it, unless we all demand civil service reform, it won't be an agenda of our political leaders. So my wish for you, basically, when you go out today, there are two things that I want you to go out with. First is, what can you do for the economy, basically? It could be as limited as sitting on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram and talking about the economy around you, the economy around your household, what Dr. Saab just showed us, the economy right outside your doorstep. You have to talk about it. It could be at zero cost on social media or in your institutions, you know. Second, of course, is what can you do about those various leakages, wastages around you. It could be in the form of environment, it could be in the form of water, food wastages, and other resources that you see. Resource is something we can protect. Resource is something which is right here with us. As a taxpayer in this country, you should be concerned about Pakistan International Airlines, Pakistan Railways, Pakistan Television Corporation. These are all your entities. You pay for it, you know, but you're not demanding enough accountability for it. This is what I basically talk in my book. I try to give some tools of social accountability here, some tools which you and I, as citizens of Pakistan, can use to demand more economic accountability, more accountability from economic institutions in this country, so that reform of institutions like State Bank of Pakistan, Federal Board of Revenue, SECP, it becomes a personal agenda at the very end. Thank you very much.